question is, where will he find me, Liz?
Where will he find what?
The guy from the song.
Which song?
The song that opens up our show every week.
Oh, right on.
You didn't know that we were starting already?
New.
It's okay. Takes you a few minutes to catch up like this.
Or I just didn't have my headphones in.
Yeah, I didn't care that much.
What else?
What are you going to add to this conversation, really?
Yeah.
Come on. Who are you? Who am I? Anyways, folks, welcome to This Sounds Like Liberty podcast. This is episode number 61 here on the Launchpad Media. Always launching ideas in your direction. I am here, as always, with my lovely wife and co-host, Lizzie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Are you positive you're doing well?
I mean, our lovely daughter's back, so I'm a little sleep deprived. Amazing how quickly that happens. But yeah, I'm doing fine.
She wasn't even back a day.
I know.
Like, literally.
Yeah.
So, well, what do we have for the fun folks today? These fine folks.
Oh.
These fine folks, yeah.
We just have a fabulous show.
What kind of fabulous show? Who's on it?
Rocky.
Rocky or Ricky?
I'm pretty sure it's Rocky.
It's not the guy from Trailer Park Boys?
No. See, when you say Ricky, I think Ricky Ricardo.
Ricky Ricardo, that's where you go.
That's where my brain automatically
Are you fucking
goes.
70?
No.
I married an old woman, folks.
But
just so we're
Tony
clear.
Basil and also maybe I'm an old soul. I don't know.
I thought she was an old woman when we got married.
This is true. You were totally signing up for that.
I did. I was all like...
It turns out that I guess I get to be an old lady for longer or something because I'm not technically an old lady yet.
Are you one of those people... What's his name from Star Trek that's been old his entire career?
Oh, like Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, Patrick Stewart's been old his entire career.
Well, he went bald at like 27 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, so he's been old his entire career.
Absolutely. But you know what happens then? You just become timeless. People are like, oh, you never age because we all assumed that you were 50 when you were 20 and now you actually are 50 and you still look like the 50-year-old you looked like when you were 20. So.
I think he's a little older than 50 though.
Yeah, he is. He's like 70.
I think he's older than that too.
I mean, 70-something.
I think he's in his 80s, honestly.
Maybe.
Anyways, folks, we'll beat around the bush a little bit less right now by getting into our interview with Mr. Rocky Ferrenburg.
Yes, enjoy.
So, enjoy.
Now, preacher man, tell me why you won't articulate that Jesus Christ was murdered by a police state. But talking truth to power and love to hate. Christian man, when you gonna emulate? Now I look at the world, I don't see enough love. People fighting for peace cause they can't rise above. When the government takes your freedom, it turns your wine to water and your silver to dross. So roll it on. Roll on, stone of freedom into the sun. The light of freedom is the only one. Roll on, song of freedom.
Welcome, Rocky, to the Sounds Like Liberty podcast. How are we doing today?
Thank you. Doing pretty well, man. Had a little bit of a band meeting with working on a new project, and had the vocalist over here, and we were working on some chicken scratching through some lyrics and stuff, and trying to hash out the lyrics since he was not on the same page at our first rehearsal as the rest of the band was. So
I see.
Decided to take some
proactive.
We call it the special education class.
Gotcha.
That's
you got to have those with the vocalist sometimes.
I mean, if he's a good vocalist, he's just not listening to you anyways. So there's that.
Yeah, Nick's a vocalist, so there's that. There's that.
Look, I can go anywhere I want to go and say, you're going to deal with me or I'm going to walk. And that usually ends up with them dealing with me for at least a length of time. And eventually my shenanigans may run their course and they're okay to quit playing music entirely at that point because they're never going to do better.
It's really has to do more with the marketplace because each different market has a shortage of one particular musician that you need in order to complete a 4-piece.
Oh no, it has nothing to do with shortages. I'm just awesome.
Oh.
Not to toot your own horn or anything.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Look, I will be humble about many things. I've put in the fucking legwork for 2.5 decades. So
why don't you sing me a little something?
You got money? Sorry, that's what happens when you hit pro status. I don't have to give it out. I don't have to give it out for free anymore, bro.
Oh, for the love of Pete.
That's great.
I came home with like $400 last night. So
anyway, the band.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about this band.
Oh well, this is actually a new project. I was originally I run a show called the Noisemaker Podcast, which takes independent, underground, unsigned bands, and we kind of give them an interview style platform to showcase their music. And so this project was something I had initially written to kind of address the idea of rewriting history. And so I kind of developed this idea and wanted certain musicians to come in and play on this album. And I was going to use this as a promotional tool through the podcast. But turns out that all these guys really want to play these songs live. They don't want to just studio it up. So we decided to kind of take that route. And unfortunately, I'm getting ready to put out my last episode for this, the Noisemaker Podcast. And I think we're going to be actually putting the kibosh on that for a different project that I'm going to be starting up. Probably start.
Well, I saw online you were talking about changing directions with it, and I was curious what was going on with that.
Well, it was kind of a weird thing when I first started podcasting. Everybody says find your niche, find your niche, find your niche, but it just if it has begun to feel more like a circle jerk, like it's musicians just listening to other musicians, and there's not really a fan base. Maybe the market is not there for people who just want to find independent artists.
That's actually not how that works. In fact, yes.
Say what?
I said that's actually not how that works because normal people just want to hear that thing they heard on the radio. Sadly.
Yeah, and so I'm finding that I thought that maybe that would be an interesting thing, and especially to span all genres. And so I just don't think that I'm retaining the proper amount of listeners after doing this for a year, and putting money into it.
Yeah.
So I think I haven't actually launched it yet, but I'm trying to get some stuff around theme songs and some artwork and stuff done. But more than likely what I'm going to launch is a podcast called Rocky's Room. And I'm going to basically talk about just everything that interests me. And I don't really care what people think about it. And I'm just going to put out whatever I want to.
One suggestion though.
Sure. Go ahead.
You've got to have Rocky Raccoon open up the show.
Say what?
You got to have Rocky Raccoon by the Beatles as your intro music.
Yeah, if I get, yeah,
down
you
there
can
in the
get a
house,
license.
go on board named Rocky Raccoon.
You can line it in there with little bits of Rocky the Flying Squirrel.
There you go.
Man, my daughter loved that.
Yeah.
And then end it with that show.
And then end it with Stallone yelling for Adrian.
There you go. Just get all the Rockies, cover all the bases.
Every episode goes out with.
Yeah,
I like this idea. This is a solid plan.
As far as licensing goes, that's $10 per show right there.
Oh, jeez.
Seriously, who do you license? Who would you license through?
I don't know. I with this last album because I play in another band. I play in a blues metal band called Rain for Dust. And
so that's what
we just got done. Say that again.
That's like what, Down or
what?
I'm just trying to place like what a blues metal band sounds like. I'm just thinking Down or Clutch or something.
Yeah, Clutch is definitely one of their big inspirations.
Okay.
And so you're pretty much on point with that. This album's a little bit heavier than their last album was, but we went ahead and we recorded a cover of Thunder Kiss, and it was pretty cool. We wound up paying for the license to make sure if anything happened, we had our asses covered. because last thing we want is it to blow up and have somebody go, "Hey, you never paid for that," you know. So I mean, it was interesting going through that licensing process for that. It was definitely different than anything I've done for music thus far, but it wasn't too complicated.
I use what do you call it, DistroKid for all my stuff now, and their process is pretty simple. In other words, they do it for you.
We went to Easy Song Licensing.
Okay.
And got it done, and it was pretty simple. We didn't really have to do very much. We just filled out.
How much do you guys pay for it?
Oh, 9.7 cents per license.
Nice. Yeah. Honestly, through DistroKid, it was a flat fee per year, and I think it's like $12 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the way they do it. And
I've done stuff through CD Baby.
Yeah.
But CD Baby, when you license, it can only be licensed as a single.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going to go through Easy Song Licensing because they had it up, but a partner of mine who works more with, more in depth into the music industry said, yeah, Easy Song Licensing is where I would go. So we just popped in there. I think it was like a $30 application fee.
Yeah.
And then there was 9.7 cents per license per digital download or CD. And then beyond that, if you wanted to pay an additional $30, you could have, your application fee in the future waived. But I was like, I don't know if we'll ever do it again. So
who cares?
Yeah, so I was like, I guess if it hits big and we have to get some more licenses or something like that, then I'll pay the $30, and that way we never have to do it again because then it's rocking and rolling. But at this point, whatever,
Right on. So you've had a pretty interesting life there, haven't you? You live in Alaska.
Like to think so.
You've done a little time. You somehow have managed to make 5 kids in there. Are you 100 years old?
Oh, no, hold on. Let's back this up. I have a family of 5. I have 3 kids. The wife won't. No, no, it's not. We didn't have a litter or nothing. No 5 kids yet.
Nice. I'll be honest. 3
We're only
is still
3.
Impressive.
Yeah, well, I think my wife did most of the work.
We did 1, and then I said, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get this thing snipped off, and we're about enough of that."
Well, it's because we tried. We wanted a boy, and so we tried 3 times, and we got all 3 girls. So,
well, hopefully they're less trouble than you.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, so you're a podcaster. You are a musician. What else do you do?
I also am a writer for ThinkLiberty.com, and
nice.
So I publish articles whenever I get around to it on there. I've got, I don't know, like 30 or something up there. And I write about everything from the economics of comic books to even developing, conspiracy theories surrounding Trump and Clinton working together to get Trump or Clinton elected, kind of like the Kerry Bush, conspiracy theory ideas, the skull and bone stuff. And then I even write about stuff like dead weight loss, just kind of some economic ideas, and then some stuff about social issues. I wrote an article. I don't think it actually got published. I think it got taken down off one of the other sites I wrote for, but I wrote about how the free market was solving the sexual harassment issue, with pushing Harvey Weinstein out and stuff like that. So
that'd be an interesting
anything
article.
that pretty much interests me.
Nice.
Well, it sounds like you got a pretty diverse set of interests in there. Harvey Weinstein, comic books.
Like I said, whatever interests me, man.
Right on. So you, I know you through libertarian podcasting. How did you find your way over to the liberty world?
Well, it was kind of interesting. I actually had heard about libertarianism back whenever I was younger and I was getting high. I hung out with a guy that I wrote music with, and he hung out with a group of people, and they were all libertarians. And the idea was pretty much the idea that attracted me to it back then was, just basically everybody wants to be. It was the idea that libertarians want to be left alone and want everybody else to be left alone was kind of the nutshell thing I got. But that was back in 2003 or something like that. So, I mean, that was before the quote unquote Ron Paul moment. I mean, Ron Paul ran back in '88, but I mean that was before the a lot of other people
Well,
came
it's the
to it.
Giuliani moment that people really talk about, which was '08, right?
Yeah. So I mean, but I didn't really pay much attention because I wasn't really into politics back then. I was more into getting high, and so
I can't
when I
blame
got
you.
out of
That one's way more interesting than the other.
yeah. Well, so whenever I got out of prison this last time, I decided that through trying to revamp my life, that this would be that the best way to go ahead and kind of address where my moral compass lays, I would go ahead and kind of dive deeper into what I believed, religious or spiritually, and then also what I believe politically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was shamefully enough, I was kind of attracted to the idea of socialism, but it wasn't necessarily based around the idea. Once I really started thinking about it, I started like looking at the fact that it requires force, and I was like, this, we shouldn't have to force people. People should be willingly like come together and collectively take care of one another. That is the ideal form of government. So I had a problem with the force mechanism in it, and whenever I rediscovered libertarianism, I was like, well, this basically allows for people to do that if they so choose.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically kind of started going down the rabbit hole. And I mean, the story is the same for just about everybody. Once you find it, you just start finding that literature and podcasts, and then you become a member of the intellectual dark web, right?
I mean, I was gonna make a joke about much like any druggie, you take one pill, you just keep taking them.
Right. You find that high and you just ride it,
There you go.
You find that high where everybody hates you and you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to ride this till it ends.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with a bandmate last night after I was driving him home from a show about the whole why I'm a libertarian thing. Aren't there easier things to be?
Well, sure.
Like, why would you believe this thing? Like, if it's not going to do anything. And I'm like, I don't know, because I believe it.
My guitarist, he actually has been really receptive to it. He always asks me questions, kind of like a curious kid. You know what I mean? He's like, well, how would this work? How would that work? But he also tries to troll me. So anytime I'm on Facebook and I post something, he's like, man, he'll just get on there and comment, be like, man, I love taxes. You're a troll, man.
Yeah, that's absolutely troll, because nobody loves taxes. They might love what they get from taxes.
Right. Or what they think they get from taxes.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest disconnect, is that people think that their taxes pay for things, and they don't. Borrowed money and inflation pay for things.
Correct.
Taxes.
Correct. Your taxes pay for other people to get paid off of their taxes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, right on. So, what kind of music are you into? You said you play in a blues rock, or was it a blues metal band or heavy blues band, something like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what's your thing?
So I originally played in more kind of like a alternative. I would want to call it alternative metal, but it was kind of more of a rap rock band.
New metal.
That was, but it wasn't necessarily new metal. It was kind of I guess like the track I sent you that we'll probably get into is probably the heaviest song that we had from that band.
That was
pretty
new metal-y.
Yeah, but a lot of the other songs on the album they transition from being clean to being distorted. You know what I mean? But anyways, so then
I'm living in a world where you were in Linkin Park. That's all I'm saying.
I could not Simple Plan, but I could be in Linkin Park. That wouldn't hurt my feelings.
That'd be sweet if you were in Simple Plan. I'd have so many questions for you. What was it like getting laid off that one track that you guys had?
Yeah, what was it like having one song?
I mean, I don't know. I could ask AC/DC the same question. Somehow they've managed to turn that into a 60-year career.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. I hate. So I thought Avenged Sevenfold was the same way when they first came out with their first album. I listened to it. I downloaded it and I listened to it, and it felt like one giant song. And I think their second album was similar, and then I just kind of stopped listening to them. So I was highly unimpressed with the
City of
It's probably
Evil,
the solo.
City of Evil was a turning point for them. Because
And
they had the dude's dad come in and play guitar. City of Evil was the first album, like when they recorded it, they actually wrote an apology letter to all their fans for the first 2 weeks of the tour because they never played the album in its entirety prior to the tour. And so the first 2 weeks were actually them learning how to play all the songs.
That's an approach.
Well, it was a studio record. They went in and they, it was less like heavy music and more like rock oriented songs.
yeah,
They pissed off a lot of their fans with that record, but it also is what got them a gigantic fan base because like they finally got themselves into the mainstream with it.
well, that's definitely what you call winging it.
Absolutely. Like I said, part of it was like they had the one dude's dad come in and play like classical guitar on one of the tracks and stuff. I think Sidewinder his dad played on. And actually saw them at the Warped Tour, the when that record came out, and I was incredibly impressed by them because like they came out on stage and like it opened up with like a dual guitar solo with the dudes back to back wailing away and flames shooting up off the stage. And M Shadows comes out and he's like 50 feet tall. Because if you didn't know this, M Shadows is very, very tall.
No, wouldn't have guessed it.
What's amusing is that this cracks me up. So like they're pretty known in the heavy metal scene for whatever. But his actual first career was going to be as a college basketball player.
Oh.
He's like a 6'9" white guy. Something ridiculous like that. But he ended up like tearing his shoulder his senior year of high school and lost his scholarship. And so, so he fell back on his other plan, which was, fronting a heavy metal band.
Well, there you go.
I feel like it worked out for him. I feel like as a white guy, he only had so far he could go in basketball.
Aw.
So probably a better life choice.
The other vocalist, because I noticed a lot of times vocalists are more shorter. Well, I mean, I'm 6'2", so most people are shorter than me.
He's a giant, Liz.
But but the lead singer for Adelita's Way is gargantuous, man. He's tall as hell.
That's that dude that was on the Tom Woods show, right?
No, I don't think so.
They're like a
Adelita's Way.
Yeah. He's actually
was he?
I believe so. It was probably about a year ago now. He's a big like Austrian school guy, and he was on there actually talking about being an independent musician and getting rid of the label support because he made more money independently than dealing with a label.
Let me see.
Pretty positive that's the case.
The Anthony Rick did Jesus.
That sounds about right.
Day Jesus.
That sounds about right. I'm gonna look this up.
I was about to say I was pulling it up right now too, but yeah,
the name sounds familiar. So,
Tom Woods gets everybody.
Yeah, and Tom Woods is dicking me around about getting on here. He's not really.
No, he
very politely like puts it off. Well, I'm real busy right now. How about you get a hold of me in a couple months? Yes, he's Tom Woods. But look, he's the only person I want to geek out about old Genesis records with.
Well, there you go.
And we can talk about Yes.
Yeah, I could dig that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm working slowly. I'm gonna get everyone around him on this show. Like,
yeah.
We have Michael Bolden coming out this week.
Oh, Michael's a cool guy.
Oh, dude, his episode was fun.
Yeah. He's got some stories. Yeah, I contacted him. I wanted to do a piece on him for Think Liberty, and when I talked to him about it, and then I got back with those guys, and they're like, we're gonna have him on the podcast here soon, and I was like, all right, well then it's kind of pointless for me to write a piece unless we're gonna release it together, and just never wound up following up on it. I kind of like to do stuff that's a little bit more unique. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if I don't have because if it's not unique, then it's something that you can read somewhere else,
Yeah.
So
you always want to have your own thing in there.
Of course.
Your own little angle. So I guess here's a question for you. Since you do so much, you give me the impression that you're kind of searching for something. What is it that you're searching for?
That's good, man. Nobody's actually really asked me that before, but it's crazy because I kind of feel like I got like a late start to normal life, considering that I've been clean for almost 8 years now. But
How do you like that?
well, it's better than breaking out in handcuffs. It's better than eating beans that have rocks in it.
Okay.
I don't know about all that.
Well, if you've ever bit into a rock thinking it was a bean, it's not a pleasant
No.
thing. That happened at one of the last prison I was at, which ironically enough, I just scheduled to go back there and speak. Friday, I just went up to the one of the prisons in Boise and came in there and spoke to about 80 inmates about sobriety and life after prison and that kind of stuff. So.
Okay.
But as far as trying to find something, so I got out of prison about a year after I was incarcerated, which was my clean date. And then when I got out, I did another 3 years and some change on probation. So technically, I've really only been off for about, what is that now? Like 3-4 years, something like that now. So my life has really only started within the last, less than a decade. And so, in that time, I decided to go to college. So I got, 7 college degrees, and I decided to start trying to.
This is why I think he's a man searching, Liz. It's the only kind of person that goes and gets 7 college degrees.
Well, and then starting the podcast, and I actually just finished the rough draft. It's in the editing process for my memoir about my drug addiction. And, I mean, mainly what this stuff is I'm trying to find a way out there that I can begin to generate wealth and stop trading hours for dollars. And it's kind of one of those things that until I find that moment, I basically am continuing to do my day job because it's what puts food on the table. It's what allows me to take vacations with my family, give my kids a good life. But I'm constantly doing the 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, even though those aren't the actual hours that I'm free. But I take my free time every chance I get to try to, build some kind of brand or something out there that, might work because,
I'm curious if you got yourself a guru. Who's the guy leading you, being your Sherpa on this journey?
No one.
No one?
No one, man. I'm just it's a shot in the dark. I listen to a lot of Jason Stapleton. And so I guess if I had to tack someone on, but he doesn't really know me, you know what I mean?
Oh
so,
no, there's a bunch of us that listen to Jason.
He's
good for motivation.
I've had a couple conversations with Jason. Kind of the Tom Wood thing. He seems pretty busy, but he also seems like one of the guys that, I mean, I'm sure that if I offered him enough money, he would have a conversation with me. You definitely have to buy time. You have to buy time with Jason. I get that.
I have actually met Jason.
Oh yeah, yeah. I bet you he's a nice guy. I just haven't.
I'm gonna be honest.
I've only had a couple conversations.
He was very standoffish, not in
not in a rude sort of way. Just like he's busy and doing his own thing sort of way.
Yeah, it wasn't even really that. It was more on he doesn't like people. So he just seemed like he wanted to be anywhere but where he was, and where he was is where people were. Or maybe he was just waiting to get enough alcohol in his system that he could not realize what was going on.
Well, there's a couple times, there's a couple things with people. Okay, so it's the same idea as this when the whole grunge movement came out, and you have all these different people like Chris Cornell, Eddie Vedder, Kurt Cobain, all these guys that are it's cool to not want the fame, but yet you still go along and you still accept the fame, and so it's like this thing where I want it, I do it, but then I have to act like I don't want it. If you're in this position where you are a figure in the public, I mean,
well, then here's a question:
you have to like it.
Let's
you know what I mean?
Conspiratorial for a minute. Do you think that's what happened with Chris and Linkin Park dude?
What that they didn't like the light?
No, that they didn't like the child touching, and that's why they're dead.
Probably. I wanted to peg Kurt Cobain for being a child molester.
Well, no, I'm saying that's the thing. Like that's how when you won't get on board. Like when you reach that level of fame, you're either into the Satanist cult or you're kicked out. And by kicked out, they kill you.
What
they
that?
Weren't taking trips to Epstein Island, and so there's somebody that couldn't be controlled.
Talking about conspiratorial, isn't it amazing that each time something comes out with anything that has to do with pedophilia or anything like that, all of a sudden there's another story about Epstein? First it was Epstein's pedophilia, then it was Epstein, being charged, then he was being convicted, then he was killed. Now all of a sudden he's been brought back. I'm waiting for this, like a Star Wars trilogy thing. I'm waiting for like episode 6 of the Epstein saga.
Let's hope it doesn't last that long. I mean, let's hope they throw somebody in jail, throw everybody in jail. We lock Hillary up. Is that something?
No.
Look, I don't know. I don't know what really goes on. I'm just saying, as a young man, how come all these people are so fucking rich and so depressed and they got families and shit? I guess that's my bigger thing. When you got a family like that, how you kill yourself, bruh? You gotta take care of them.
What was the thing that Michael Jackson said about the owner of Sony? Called him a devil. There's a video out there, and it was like right before he died, and he's calling the CEO of Sony a devil and talking about how he does horrible things. I don't know. He's like in this dark room with like a crowd in front of him, almost like he's on a music stage or something. And it's this weird. I don't remember what he was doing, but it was this weird
I want to
thing.
find this video.
Yeah, look it up. Whenever we get done, I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But yeah, he calls the CEO of Sony the devil and says something about that he does evil stuff, and he was kind of vague. And then I think it was like 2 weeks after that he had his heart attack.
You mean vague in the way that Corey Feldman and Corey Haim were always vague about being raped?
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, kind of vague like that. I guess.
And then Corey Haim had a drug overdose.
Yeah,
it's weird how these people die. When these things happen.
Yeah, Gary Webb committed suicide with 2 gunshot wounds to the back of his head.
Whew. What do you think, Liz?
Because I must have missed the first time, right? Didn't get it spot on the first time, so
we keep getting calls from probably my daughter.
Yep.
And so we've had a bunch of ringing for the record. So Liz walked away to tell her to stop calling us.
Basically.
So we can get through the interview. And so Liz has missed the entire conversation that I sparked up over the conspiracy of Chris Cornell being murdered for not being into child touching.
Oh
yeah, that would be kind of weird to walk in and hear and not be in on the conversation,
right?
And hear people talking.
I'm going to be honest.
She's
probably walked in on stranger conversations.
There is that, yeah.
It is what it is. And then he was telling me about how shortly before Michael Jackson died, he was talking about the head for Sony being a devil in a dark room.
Yeah, making all kinds of weird stuff about
Very cryptic.
God, I can't remember his name. Let me see.
You think did they get Prince like that too? Is that what Prince went?
I don't know. I think Prince is one of those weird characters where, like, I think a lot of people that are more conservative might think that Prince was a weirdo, but I think he was almost kind of a weirdo in the opposite direction. Like he was kind of
genius.
Well, what was it? I've heard a bunch of stories about like him being on a plane and sending like notes to people, like asking them to not stare at him and stuff, like why he's sitting on planes and somebody else was talking about Prince being at an award show and sending a guard over to him and telling another celebrity to not to look at him, not to make eye contact with him and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a Prince thing. You got to remember when Prince got famous, he was very young, but like Prince was super young, but not so young as to like not be able to appreciate fame. But perhaps
it's not like Macaulay Culkin.
A little bit like that. Macaulay Culkin still had like parents kind of filtering it out. Prince was young enough that he didn't have parents, but he was young enough that like he could be affected by the fame, but not so old that he needed to have like people around him.
Yeah.
If you're a comic book guy, have you ever watched the what do you call it? the Kevin Smith video where Kevin Smith is out there, what the hell do you call it? Talking about when he did some work for Prince and recorded a documentary film for him.
No, not right offhand.
Dude,
not right offhand.
It is hilarious because one of the things is he talks about how, you know, he's asked to do a documentary. And he's like, well, I'm not a documentarian. Like, I make, you know, movies with dick and fart jokes.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the publicist, and she's like, well, I mean, I could tell him that, but it's not going to do any good. He's like, what do you mean it's not going to do any good? She's like, well, you see, Prince has lived in Prince land for so long that things that you and I think are not possible, like, he doesn't understand. Like, if it's it's 3:00 in the morning in the middle of Detroit, and Prince says, I need you to go find me a camel. Prince gets a camel. So
that's what I'm getting at. I think that he's bizarre enough that some people might think that he could be involved in some kind of child sex ring, but I wouldn't think that he would be. I think that he's weird enough that it'd be like, it's almost like overshoots that boundary. You know what I mean?
It's weird because I honestly don't even think of him as being that weird. Like, he gets erroneously labeled as weird because he is incredibly smart and people don't always understand what he's doing. Like,
well, yeah.
Like the whole, like, a lot of people don't realize that him changing his name to an unpronounceable symbol is probably one of the most genius things that any musician has ever done.
So why do you think it's genius?
Oh no, I know why it's genius. Okay, it's not a thing.
Why do you know why it's genius?
Okay, so here's the thing. Do you know why he did that?
No.
Okay, Prince had an incredibly oppressive contract. Like, he owed lots of music to his label and was making practically nothing on it for a guy who's as super famous as he is. So,
yeah.
Obviously, what do they own when they own you? Well, they own the name. Anything he releases as Prince was going to be theirs. So, rather than go out, do the legwork, start up an entirely new fucking career underneath a new name and have to do all that legwork, he goes and he changes his name to a fucking symbol. Now, the reason I like that it's a symbol as opposed to just goes and gets another name is that, well, he can always just say, well, the artist formerly known as Prince, and he now gets to sign all of his paperwork and work as an artist underneath the symbol. But everyone knows it's Prince because, you know, and the thing is that legally working underneath that symbol got him out of his contract until it was like over. And when it was over, he went right back to being Prince.
Wasn't there a lot of, isn't there a stipulation with most of these bigger record companies? They have something that has to do with, like, if they can prove that even if you had any type of idea or melody or song or anything.
You're getting into like modern 360 deal contracts, and those are a little different. Because when music stopped making as much money that the labels didn't want to deal with it, eventually what they did was made deals where anything that you do, they make money off of it. So like if you're a musician, but you go and get a movie deal, well, they get a piece of that because the fame that you garner from being a musician is what got you that deal. And since they're not making money off of the other parts of your business, that's where they went to. But
so do you think these bigger companies are going to be coming to an end at some point in time? Or do you think they'll
inevitably.
Do you think they'll kind of finagle a way to stay relevant?
Well, you're the guy that hosts the independent music podcast. You don't want to be telling me this shit. You talk to the musicians. So the hell do I know about it? I'm just an independent musician.
Well, you know, I mean, I guess if I had an opinion on it, I think that it would have more to do. I think they'll find a way in order to manipulate things. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they're already. I mean, okay, so with streaming music nowadays, most artists aren't making crap off streaming music, And it's because there's such small profit margins, and these record companies are still trying to take as much as they possibly can. But the idea of them holding the gates to get exposure and get out into the music community, those gates have been torn, or those walls have been torn down.
Well,
but that doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna. You haven't quite started to choke the beast yet. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that also has to do with like tour agents, booking agents. Because whenever I was booking shows locally here, those guys seem to act like they have the keys to the music world, you know.
Hey, how's it going? Nikki P here. Want to support the show or just give a big middle finger to Patreon? Consider stopping over to supportsll.com. Members of the Freedom Choir get access to the private Facebook group and actual physical merch. Want access to the unedited raw interviews as they're recorded way before they're released? It's in there. Is that not enough? And you want membership to Freedom Song 365? It's in there. There's even monthly bonus swag for top tier supporters. So head on over to supportsll.com. Help Liz and I get to libertarian functions and even just cover the costs of making the show. If I'm not a good enough salesman, how about this?
Support my mom and dad and Sounds Like Liberty. Go to supportsll.com.
You heard her, folks. Join the Freedom Choir at supportsll.com.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if we've actually talked about this on this show at all yet. So, a lot of things have been going on. What I can tell you is that most of the record labels are just owned by banks anymore. If you've never watched it, I recommend go and watch the 30 Seconds to Mars documentary about doing their sophomore album.
Oh, I heard about that record. What is that? That's the Jared Leto one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And despite Jared Leto being the front man of the band, they were in for millions and millions of dollars to their record label because they were sold off to a bank. The guy who owned the label was a banker. He had no history in music and didn't know what the fuck to do with them. And so he kind of had a different interpretation of their contract and was going to take them to court and fight them if they didn't play ball the way he wanted them to. It put them in a very precarious situation. But so here's the thing. The gatekeepers are, for the most part, gone. If you want to go out and get heard, you're going to do it online somewhere. Making viral content or getting yourself placed someplace. The fact of the matter is that the only people that you're going to be making money off of in perpetuity are like legacy artists. It's like you're the artists that were kind of before the change came. When you talk about margins, though, I mean, I don't know, dude. You're kind of. I find that a difficult one to do to like really believe because both recording equipment and instruments are cheaper than they've ever been in history. Everyone has every musician has a home studio that they can make something of the same audio quality as anybody out there, any super producer out there. So it's like making music is cheaper than it's ever been. The problem that you actually run into, however, is the saturation in the markets. So
yes, we talk about that a lot on the show. Yeah,
mass appeal is not something that any musician should be going for. What you need to be doing is finding that very, very specific niche. Find those people that are going to be your core fans and give them exactly what they want. The other, element is that people try, I think you used to be able to pretend that music was a bit more of an art than a commercial project because the artists were so separate from the commercial side of it. But I think that world is kind of gone. Like if you want to make music, you either do it for yourself or you do it for other people. And if you do it for other people, you're prone to all the same market feedback that any other business is.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why you get people. I mean that's how you get people like what's that gal's name, Billie Eilish or whatever.
So
there's
boring.
that.
Yeah. my vocalist and I I was over there picking some stuff up from him the other day, and he was talking about how he's like it's really weird how the female pop has kind of turned into this almost like female monotone, like almost I don't want to be here kind of tone to all their songs. It's kind of It's almost this flat, I don't really know exactly what's driving that, but there's a bunch of artists out there right now.
It's easy to reproduce, Rocky.
Well, there's that, and I almost feel like it's supposed to be a feminist thing. Like, I'm not doing this for you.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that sounds good.
It is actually part of it.
Reason.
Like literally the reason Billie Eilish, like Dan Smots brought her up a couple months ago about he really likes her, and I don't get it. Like,
yeah,
she's like the big thing that I hear from a lot of people. Oh, well, she's homeschooled, and I'm like, okay. So,
well, I guess if you were going to bring her on and talk about homeschooling, that's something different. If you want to bring her on and like try to like use her as this some sort of like person to like kind of buffer any type of intellectual musical conversation, I would say that you're falling short.
Well, she's the anti-pop star, and she goes on there and she wears those loose-fitting clothes so as not to turn men on and not be objectified sexually. And I'm like, well, I hate to break it to you, that's simply not how men work.
Isn't there a video of her like crawling down a hall all sexual in a mental institution or something like that, like where like lightning strikes?
I mean, probably. It's a music video. That's usually how those work.
Yeah, people just parrot this shit because they're idiots.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. If people out there, anyone listening, if you like Billie Eilish, that's cool. Like I question your sanity and your taste, but that's up to you, bro. You do your thing.
The thing that I always tell people with pop music is somebody likes them.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
You know what I mean?
I love pop music. And one thing, like, I'll get on my soapbox about the fact that, like, Lorde, who is who Billie Eilish sounds like musically.
Yeah, they all sound like Lorde.
Yeah.
Was famous, despite the fact that Kimbra released an album during the same time period that Lorde came out that is pop music, unassailably pop music, and a bajillion times better than anything Lorde ever put out. And it is fucking criminal that Lorde became a household name and Kimbra didn't. And they're both from New Zealand, even.
I like South Park's take on Lorde.
I know.
They nailed it pretty
pretty
good.
Randy.
And Lorde.
Lordy.
Oh, man.
That's great.
Oh, it's all plugins. That was a good season.
Randy is my favorite character. Randy's been my favorite character clear back whenever Cartman's dressed up like a cop and he pulls Randy over and Randy's like, "Hey, aren't you Stan's little friend?" He's like, "Yeah, you're the one that always comes over to the house and clogs up the toilet." Randy's always been my favorite character on South Park.
And I think what's funny is that Randy was never meant to be what Randy became, but like,
no,
he just there was so much that they could do with him, and I love it. So
yeah, for sure.
Right on. What are you thinking about, Liz?
I was just thinking about, like, we talked about the genres that your band is in, and did we talk about what you listen to? Like, what you actually, is there stuff that you actually listen to, or?
So, growing up, I listened to a lot of different stuff. I had the mentality that there's good music in every category, just like there is bad music in every genre. And so, I had everything from some polka music on my, computer growing up to, just everything.
Let it be known, Rocky Ferrenburg, good polka music.
There's such thing. And what really blows me away is the more, being down here in Idaho and having all the Mexican bands, the Spanish bands, Latino bands, whatever you want to call them. These guys that are up there with the accordions that are rocking out, that's like the lead guitar player in their band. Like, he's pulling all the chicks at the end of the night. And I just find that fascinating that this guy who's up there playing like this dorky Weird Al instrument is just pulling it. You know what I mean? Like that's just so amazing. Like my hat's off.
This is why I like Rocky. He's a man of my own.
It does take a lot of skill.
Talking about pulling tail.
It does take a lot of skill playing the
off of an accordion, man.
It is a really hard thing to play. I've got one in the house. It's not a fun thing. I mean, it is fun, but it's difficult.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, so like usually if I'm driving around, I listen to a lot of the independent bands and stuff I've had on. and a lot of the independent bands I've booked and whatnot. So the genre is pretty wide, but kind of stays mainly in the rock vein. So whenever I get in my wife's car, she listens to your standard top 40 pop, so when I'm in her car, I pretty much just listen to that. And if for some reason I can't listen to stuff, I just have it on the local rock station here. But, like this morning while I was cooking breakfast, I had a Immortal Technique Revolutionary Volume 2 on, you know what I mean?
Nice.
So, and I mean, as far as rap goes in that area, I mean, I'm a big Mac Dre fan. Tech Nine, Immortal Technique, kind of that the more independent side of the popular independent side of rap. But no, I mean, really, I was a grunge guy growing up. I have a weird fetish, I guess you could say, musical fetish with comedy rock. So like Gwar, Green Jello. There's a really good band called Potty Mouth, and then Psycho Stick. All these Max Sabbath. All those guys.
Yeah, I just posted a meme in our Facebook group the other day. There was somebody who was going around with was it Work Sucks? I know, like a Blink-182 meme, but people were changing out the one cell to have other people say stuff. And so I changed it out and put Odorous Arungus in there. And since Work Sucks, I know, fish fuck. Because that's my favorite Gwar song.
There you go.
Yeah, fucking an animal, right?
Well, no, it's fucking an animal. Fucking an animal.
Yeah.
No,
it's like a go from dog to goose, fucking an animal.
No, fish fuck is fucking hilarious. It was actually a song, originally I heard it on the Short Music for Short People's album.
There you go.
Which was Fat Records put out a record with 101 bands doing 30-second songs. And they did like a shortened version of their song Fish Fuck. It's like, fish fuck, baby. I'm gonna fuck you with a fish. I'm gonna take a river carp and ram it up your butt, you slut, you whore. Why are you my mom? Why are you my mom? Yeah, it's a funny song. It's very Gwar.
There you go.
The best part about the fucking an animal song by Gwar is at the very end of the song, there's a brief pause, and then you hear Dave Brockie say, in the most flattest tone he possibly could, he says, I'm not willing to spend any more time on that song.
He's like, and we're done.
Well, the whole Gwar project is always interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
never got a chance to see him with Dave, but I saw him with the new guy, and it was still great. I still loved it. We're all white.
I guess if you understand that the whole thing was never really just about Dave, it was about the project that is Gwar, which is a lot of people. The problem is though that Dave was just such a fucking larger than life personality.
Well, yeah, I mean his interviews. I mean, I love just watching him as Odorous Arungus just talk to reporters.
Oh my god, it was amazing.
Or interviewers. He's just not out of character. And then if you've ever seen him talk, it's really weird to see him like out of costume talking, because he sounds almost just like Odorous Arungus. Like he sounds just like
for sure. Like he's that old school, super smarmy 80s punk rocker. Like
yeah,
it's just who Dave is, and I think that's why he wore that character so well. Yeah, I have some of the Dave Brockie Experience records. I think they do more than one.
Oh yeah, where he did I remember that project.
If I have to pick a favorite Gwar song, everybody, I'm just going to lay it out there. It is absolutely Preschool Prostitute.
Yeah, I Hate Love Songs is pretty good.
I'm Gonna Kill You is another favorite of mine.
Yeah,
gonna kill you. Gonna cut you up.
Gotta love Gwar, man. Yeah.
So
Gwar's so great.
Speaking of lyrics, we've talked a lot about Gwar's lyrics here in this past couple. Let's actually talk about the song. Every episode we try to talk about some lyrics to a song. And we're going to do something different this week than giving the normal Eric July versus Bob Dylan or Lou Bega rating. We're actually going to talk to Rocky a little bit about a song that he had a part in writing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about this song and its genesis, and we'll kind of go through the lyrics because I actually really liked them. Go figure, it's about soldiers and shit.
Yeah, it's actually the vocalist that I was working with in the rap rock band. We both had a giant folder full of lyrics and poems and stuff we'd written, and so we were trying to come up with some new ideas. I said, well, why don't we just trade folders for about a week or two, and then come back and have the things that we like from one another. Because obviously, if we wrote them and we kept them, we like them ourselves. And then if the other person likes them, then maybe there might be something there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going through and I had some stuff in the pile, and I came through and I read this poem that he had written, and I was like, there's something here, you know? And so I kind of came back and I kind of had an idea that I cut about 4 lines out of the middle of the poem, and that's what became the chorus. And then we just kind of went through and just rewrote all the lines that needed to be adjusted, and kind of just restructure them to fit the riff that we picked. And just kind of went through and rephrased some of the stuff. There's a line in there that says, originally it said politicians get fucked when I start to speak, but then a couple lines later he uses the word fuck again. And I was just kind of, hey, why don't we try a different word here? Because it will help accent it better, and it won't take away from the fuck that we're using later.
Yeah.
And
sure.
so we replaced it with smash, so politicians get smashed when I start to speak, So just a lot of like small kind of changes like that, ideas thrown back and forth, and some stuff like that. So that was kind of how this whole song came about. And when we started performing it live, we started ending our shows with it. And what we would do is my vocalist, Marco, he would actually put his middle finger in the air, and he would tell everybody else, to give him, flip him off, give him the bird.
Sounds just like a guy named Marco, for the record.
And he's and he had a little funny spiel. He talked about, this is for the police officer that's going to pull you over on your way home, tonight from the bar and stuff. And he would kind of give this little spiel about who the middle finger's for. And then he would kind of stop and he'd say, if somebody next to you doesn't have theirs up, lend them your other one,
Nice.
And it was a good thing. And yeah, so then we'd start the song, of course, with everybody with their fingers up. So
nice. So why don't you walk us through the song here a little bit?
Kind of just go through the lyrics.
Yeah.
So it starts off with, it says, give me one reason to have respect for the system, demanding control over freedom's existence. And, that whole idea is basically just conveying pretty much what it says. It's this idea that we have to absentmindedly just relinquish respect and stuff to this Leviathan that rules over us. And it says, and then it kind of switches gears and says, feeding us narcotics and taxing addiction to pay off cost of war since before prohibition. And so that's basically the idea of taxation, stealing money from people, and for no bigger purpose.
Doing bread and circuses in there.
Say that again? I
said, well, still getting the bread and circuses aspect of it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a really powerful couple lines right there, because it's calling back to history a little bit, and he really wrote part of that pretty well with dealing with narcotics, syntax, and back before prohibition. But what the next couple lines I really like as well, because it says drugs are made in labs and then released to these streets like hypodermic needles pumping death and disease. And every time he would sing that, the Gary Webb stuff would always be in my head. The pushing of cocaine and the making of crack and whatnot, and pushing it into the streets. But the imagery that was chosen to be used was really interesting, because we're in this idea of drugs, and it's say that they're being released to the streets like hypodermic needles, and then pumping, that the imagery of pumping death and disease.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that could be taken as disease as addiction, and death as dying from overdoses and stuff, or shooting each other in the streets and the cartels and whatnot. But the death idea could be, even related to basically being kidnapped by the state, thrown in, a rape cage, So, it's not necessarily isolated to just what people would consider the more anarchy side, quote unquote, of drugs and addiction, but but more like the state as well. So the then the next part, he kind of starts veering away from that and starts talking a little bit about, it says population control, chalk lines on concrete, politicians get smashed when I start to speak. And so once again, you've kind of established what the issue is, that there's theft, there's drugs, there's control, all these things from the system, the state, which we call the system in this song. And then it says politicians get smashed when I start to speak. And that the key to that line there is that I forget what the cliche would be, but the idea that silence is complacency. If you see somebody getting beat up and you don't stand up for them, then you're complacent in the crime being committed.
Complicit.
Complicit. Yes. So I mean the idea that
complacency leads to complacency is what you're saying.
Yeah. I guess I was on the right track. I just hadn't made that last leap, right? So yeah, I mean the idea that it's also kind of the idea that power is, or knowledge is power. I mean if everybody's quiet and everybody just abides, then people can still get away with ruling over you like this.
Mm-hmm. I really like this section coming up, for the record. That's why.
Say that again.
I said I really like this section coming up. Yeah.
So it says, what's the sense to fight together when we all die alone in a world where conspiracy is more than condoned? And so what's really kind of being conveyed in those two lines is now that we've established that there's a problem and we got to speak back, speak out against the system. There's that idea of people saying, the system's too big. What are you going to do? Kind of like what you were talking about with your friend on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about how, this isn't going to happen. So why even care? Or people say, why bother with politics? You can't do anything about it anyway. You can't change the system. And, I mean, that's part of what it is that you have this group of people that think they can do whatever they want because nobody holds them accountable. And that's what it means. At least that's what I interpret whenever I read, in a world where conspiracy is more than condoned. Mm. Then the final part of this first verse says, you mindless little puppets pushing devils to thrones, the beginning of the end to those with no soul.
Does he say pussies when you guys play it live? I just wanted to get antagonistic with the crowd. You mindless little pussies. I see you out there.
No, actually, what was really interesting about that line was it was kind of a back and forth between Marco and I. And Marco wanted to say something else. I couldn't remember what it was. Like he wanted to say like the mindless little puppets. And I kept telling him, I said, you need to say you, and whenever you do it, you need to point to the audience. And he's like, I don't want to. He's like, I don't want to call people that. He's like, I don't want to. I don't want to piss people off in the audience. Like I'm calling individual people that.
That's what you need to
do.
And
I told him, yeah, and that's what I told him. I said, I said, you're speaking a point here, and it's a point that people need to hear. And I said, nobody in the audience is really going to be thinking that you're talking about them specifically. But when you say you mindless little puppets pushing devils to thrones, they're going to, anybody who's listening to the words of the song are going to, almost personalize what's being happened. It's going to become more real rather than you using some sort of third-party person.
They're going to look around at the people around them. Look at all these fucking puppets here, man. Fucking pussies.
Yeah. And then they're still wearing the I voted sticker.
Oh, boy.
So this whole time, with the verse here, it seems like it's, some sort of real angsty kind of person that's been, roughed up by the cops because they, had a sack of marijuana on them or something. But what really turns this into being more about the system, I think, is the chorus. And this is why I tried to isolate this one part, because this kind of deals with the chorus deals with kind of the financial side. And it also talks about war and kind of soldiers being manipulated. So the 4 lines of the chorus says these post-traumatic symptoms kill soldiers slowly, leaving families relinquished due to those controlling. Wars on terrorists and drugs just to cover up their mission, any way to keep a penny stripped and push through the system. And so it kind of takes you out of that idea of this, of us having this problem in the criminal world, and places you in another side of the system that has to do with them taking advantage of military, of people that join the military, people that just are either poor communities or don't know what they do, or now, trying to get 16-year-olds into the military.
Yeah.
Any way that the state's taking advantage of these people. And it also talks about any way to keep a penny stripped and pushed through the system. That's always what it's about. It's about how much they can squeeze out of the currency that they create, and whatever they can get for that. I mean, currency is like a game to these people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of horrifying, when you think about the problems on so many fronts that are caused by the system. Just kind of putting that in people's faces all at once.
Yeah, and so coming back into this next verse, he was talking about. He says, "So ask me about my feelings, and I'll gladly define them. Show me politicians, and I'm down to defy them." And this next kind of section, he kind of goes through this thing where he says, "Ask me," almost every other line. And I think what he was trying to do when he kind of wrote this section of this poem, and this part, I kind of put all these things together to kind of help organize it a little bit better. But I think it's kind of this thing about, almost like, well, at this point, it's like, well, if you're so smart or you have the answers, then, why don't you tell me? Why don't you lead? And that's not really the thing. We're not looking to lead you in any way. We're just looking to try to, show and expose what's going on. And so the next line would say, ask me for an answer. You can look, but won't find it. It's like a fucking jungle, a labyrinth of crime, man. Ask me why my heart in my chest has no beat. I feel the endless pain and hatred so deep. So once again, I mean, it's not necessarily that I have the answers, but more or less, I'm just trying to, express myself and show you what I know. Now, these next two lines are some of my favorite in the song, and they're really the last two lines of all the lyrics for the song. But it says, "The raping of this nation, leaving us in submission. They're the fucking criminals, but I'm stuck in prison." And, I think that really, those two lines really say a lot. These people that are in charge are really just, taking advantage of a nation that had a lot of potential to it. They're just basically, I like the imagery of raping, to contrast between what the state does to its citizens. And then basically calling them the criminals and saying, I'm stuck in prison, because all these people in office they're committing numbers of different crimes, and yet they're more than willing to throw you in jail for, well, a lot of states have a potential jail time, issuing bench warrants for not paying traffic violations. So, I mean, you get a seatbelt ticket, traffic violation, you don't pay your $20 to the state, they issue a bench warrant for you, and you could be arrested, next time you're pulled over or whatnot. And, so they're more than willing to do these types of things, but yet at the same time, they're committing far more heinous crimes, even the stuff with the child molestation and everything that we were talking about earlier. So I think those two lines are very, very revealing.
Nice. I'm a little disappointed your title is as simple as it is for the song, though.
As simple as the system.
And maybe it's just because I grew up an emo kid, and I feel like, you really should have had like maybe 30 or 40 words in there for the song title.
Well, I feel like it's encompassing like the whole of the system, like the whole of the problem. So it kind of makes sense. And then actually when they start hitting you with everything in the song, I think it almost hits harder because you might not see it coming.
All right, so let's put him on blast. Let's rate it. Eric July,
Go ahead,
Bob
man.
Dylan.
I'm gonna say this is definitely an Eric July. There's no other way to read
I don't
that.
know. I think it's complete commie dribble.
Not buying that for a second.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
The
Yeah.
Eric July stamp on there.
Next time I talk to Marco on a visit, I'll let him know that we got the Eric July stamp, and he's not really despite him writing this initially, he's not very politically minded. So I'll say, you got the Eric July stamp, and he'll be like,
Who's
Eric
July?
Right.
If you don't mind me asking, so is Marco in?
Yeah, he's actually currently in the local county right now, and he's waiting for. He just retracted his guilty plea, and he's gonna basically go to trial and try to fight it. So, wish him luck. But like I said, man, I'm a Mexican guy with tattoos on his face who's been arrested for cocaine. Doesn't have a great chance in the state of Idaho, especially with having a previous criminal record.
That sucks.
Say that again.
I said, or probably anywhere.
Yeah, probably anywhere. But yeah,
I'm gonna be honest. The brown person thing's probably not near as important as the face tattoo. I'm gonna be honest. Like I think it's horrible to send anybody away with, for drugs.
True.
But I mean, if we're judging off of, the kind of person that's putting face tattoos on them,
What?
Sorry, I'm just being a dick.
I'm gonna throw something at Nick. It's fine.
I mean, he clearly wasn't too worried about his future because he went and got face tattoos.
So it's the guy with few sleeves.
Well, this gentleman. Well, this gentleman is a tattoo artist, so I mean that's kind of his profession. You know what I mean?
How does he keep getting? So are his crimes all drug related?
Are his crimes all drug related?
Yeah, not that it really is any of my business. I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I'll be fascinated by how awful the criminal justice system is. I'm gonna say that.
No, they aren't. Although I don't know how much he would prefer me to talk about his other crimes. But I can tell you, that they aren't all drug related. Although they did arrest him one time in my car, coming back after a show because he had a warrant out for unpaid child support, which I found to be kind of counterproductive to throw somebody in jail for not paying their child support.
Yeah, that has always boggled my mind. You're like, and they're going to support that child how? From jail?
Yeah. Yeah, making your 13 cents an hour?
Yeah.
Making license plates working in furniture shop?
You're probably a smart person that thinks that we should probably have something resembling compensatory justice, and that is not how the system works at all.
Sadly.
So, wow. Anyways, it has been a fantastic conversation. Is there anything you'd like to plug while we still got you on here, boss?
Just go ahead and stop over and follow my Facebook page. I do a lot of my political stuff through it. It's Rocky Ferrenburg.
Did you say your Facebook page?
Yeah, my Facebook page.
You don't have RockyFerrenburg.com?
I do have RockyFerrenburg.com.
And you're not directing traffic to it where you can capture an email, bro? You
been
listening to Jason or Tom Woods?
Let me tell you something. I got to revamp my marketing because trying to tell people to find Rocky Ferrenburg and then having to try to explain how to spell Ferrenburg is not a good marketing tactic. So if you search The Practical Libertarian on Facebook, you'll find me and follow me there.
We're getting ready. PracticalLibertarian.com?
No, I need to get that. I haven't done that yet.
It's like $12 on Google. I think you can get them even cheaper with Namecheap.com.
Now you're gonna have somebody else purchase it during and then all of a sudden they're gonna sell it to me $500.
I expect that you get the fuck off of this and you just go and buy the damn URL for $8.
Yeah, actually, I was getting ready to buy some other URLs for the.
Just for the record, I've had people buy URLs on podcasts. Like as we in real time record it, they're over there like, that's a great idea. Let me get that.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, let me. Should probably see if it even exists.
Like I know who has darktomwoods.com, but I'm not telling you.
Oh, and by the way, I sent you that Michael Jackson clip too.
I saw. I got a link.
Oh, jeez.
I know. Pretty jazzed up about it.
So.
Yeah, so the Practical Libertarian is a great place. Don't add me on my personal page.
Well, yeah, obvs.
But yeah, I share a lot of memes over there. I share my articles and stuff. And once this new podcast gets up and running, I'm definitely going to be running it through that page as well.
Nice.
Like the new podcast is going to be geared more towards politics, comics, music, kind of everything. Sometimes I'll have some guests on. Other times I'll just do my thing. You know what I mean? So
who's your favorite?
I just basically wanted to say that again.
What's your favorite comic book?
Like my favorite comic book series?
Sure, why not?
I really like a lot of the Captain America comics. as ironic as that is.
It is a little ironic. You chose a cop.
Right,
Like,
right.
literally maybe the cop.
It's funny because Captain
Principal
America.
libertarian, my ass. He's over here worshiping
it's
cops.
Fantasy, okay.
He's fantasizing about being a cop. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I think it's a world in which cops are actually doing something good.
Well, and see, and that's the thing about Captain America that I find to be really, really ironic. He's a quote unquote police officer, but he's somebody that even in the comics veers away from when the government starts having him, requesting that he does things that are immoral or against his principles or American principles or whatever it may be. He basically resists the system. So he's not committed to America. He's committed to this set of ideals. And it kind of demonstrates that in the movies as well. And I just find it to be a interesting because he's for the most part, he's a pretty moral character.
Yeah.
But much beyond that, I really dig Doctor Strange is probably my other big time favorite character. I think that Strange has got a lot of really cool story arcs, and they can take the stories in crazy places, really, real deep into fantasy. And they don't have to be like a lot of characters are in real world. And so it almost feels like they have to be grounded in some way in reality. And Doctor Strange has the ability to not be grounded. I mean, it's far less grounding required for Doctor Strange than even doing anything in the cosmos. So you can have things on other planets, but there's still some sort of reality that has to be grounded. Now, whenever you go into like some sort of multiverse or you go into like the nightmare realm and stuff, the possibilities of what it could be and what could be there are endless. So it's really interesting.
Nice.
Very cool.
I dig it. And all joshing aside, man, it's been a lot of fun having you on. So I thank you for coming on, talk to us.
No problem. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Liz is gonna go to bed now. Our kid was sent off to Grandma and Grandpa for the week, and this has been our first day without a kid.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen often.
There you go.
So
I think I'm probably gonna go take the family out to dinner.
Oh,
So,
that sounds awesome.
I'm getting pretty hungry, so
well, it's getting pretty late here.
Have fun.
So you're what, West Coast, Idaho?
Yeah, that's farther.
Mountain time, yeah. So it's about 7:20 here.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
It's about 9:20 here. She's got to be to work at 4, so.
Oh yeah, though.
Totally worth it.
Which, by the way, is why scheduling this interview has been such a pain in the ass because, like, I work.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
No,
but,
no.
Hey.
No, it's been a pain in the ass because, like, you work a weird schedule, she works a weird schedule, and I work a weird schedule because my normal day is like I get to work at 1:00 and work till about 9.
Yeah, and see, and I work from 2:00 my time to about 2:00 in the afternoon to 2:00 at night my time.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
so like,
And then
Yeah.
yeah, well, you can't control when the cows milk. I haul milk for a living at this point in time,
cool.
but usually I got my CDL. So what I tell people is I don't care if it's milk or if it's
no.
hazardous material or if it's pallets. You put it on the truck and you pay me. I'll drive it wherever the hell you want it.
Nice.
As long as I'm back home every night.
and
That's
then
the only
listen to
stipulation.
podcasts while you're doing it.
Oh yeah, I listen to all of them, man. I probably listen to more libertarian podcasts than anybody else. 'Cause I spend 12 hours in a day in a truck.
Guarantee I have you beat, but that's because I also host a podcast about libertarian podcasts.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I have at least 150 in my my podcatcher.
Good.
Yeah, he got me beat a little bit there.
But the same kind of situation. I drive for a living, so that's just what I do is listen to podcasts.
It's the only way to make the time go by, man.
So you let me know when you're ready to launch your new one because we'll make sure to get you pushed out there on This Week in Liberpods and give you some promotion because why the hell not?
For sure. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
So, all right. Well, you have yourself a good one there, Rocky. Take it easy.
All right, you too. Thanks, man. Bye.
As my lungs fill up with the
Right. I know what you're saying. You didn't think it could be that much fun
Yep.
talking
but it
to an
was.
ex-con.
There you go. He's not just an ex-con. He's a musician and stuff.
He's a lot of things, Liz.
He's a lot of things.
But that doesn't make him not an ex-con.
I suppose that's true.
And I don't know many people that I get to like use that descriptor with. To me,
Okay.
it's like a badge of honor.
All right. Well, do your thing then. I mean, yeah, it's hard to stay out of that space with the government for sure.
Did you not want him to be like that?
No. I'm just saying,
So, anyways, as always, like to thank all you folks for listening. You're fantastic and fabulous. And when I look at the numbers, I sit there and think, man,
this many people
you are all insane
are
that you listen to us.
totally into this.
So, but if you want to have a more interactive experience, why don't you go sign up and like us on Facebook and join the Sounds Like Liberty discussion group, sign up for the Freedom Choir, get your ass onto the Instagram or the Twitter. I say some pretty ridiculous shit on Twitter,
This is true.
and I like some pretty ridiculous people on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it all makes out for a fun time.
It totally does.
Liz does not have fun on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not a Twitter person, but I do like Facebook and I love Instagram. So
Sure you do.
yeah, look us up.
Anyways, folks, thank you as always, and go and have a bitchin' day. Bitchin' Camaro.
Yep, that's a thing.
Love me 2 times, baby. Love me twice today.
Oh my word.
Love me 2 times, baby. Twice 'cause I got AIDS.
Really?
You don't know the song?
I don't.
All right. So on that, I'm going to go and teach Liz about bitchin' Camaro.
Okay.